unfinished stories from childhood that never got told, but still live in your body, in your choices, in your silence. What if the arguments, the breakups, even the compulsions you can't explain are less about who you are today and more about wounds you never chose? By the end of this talk, you'll see how an unseen past has been shaping your present and what you can do next. When we talk about patterns that keep repeating in our lives, it's so easy to slip into shame. We ask ourselves, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get this right? Why do I keep messing up? But here's the shift that changes everything. It's not about what's wrong with you. It's about what happened to you. Childhood trauma doesn't only mean big dramatic events. It can be that, yes, but often it's quieter, more invisible. Trauma is any experience that overwhelms a child's ability to feel safe and loved. Emotional neglect, for example, is when your feelings were ignored, dismissed, or simply never noticed. It doesn't mean your parents were bad people. It may mean they were overwhelmed themselves or carrying their own pain. But for a child, being unseen or unheard leaves a deep mark. You learn, often without words, that your feelings don't matter, or that closeness isn't safe. And here's where compassion matters. As children, we are brilliantly adaptive. We found ways to survive. Maybe we learned to stay quiet so no one would get angry. Maybe we became the helper, always taking care of others to feel valued. Maybe we turned to food, fantasy, or later substances, because those things never judged us. They were intelligent responses to a world that felt too harsh, too lonely, or too unsafe. The problem is that what once protected us can start misfiring in adulthood. The silence that kept us safe as a child becomes the wall that keeps intimacy out. The perfectionism that once earned approval turns into constant self-criticism. The coping that soothed us becomes the compulsion we feel trapped in. And we don't say this to blame ourselves, we say it to recognize our humanity. Because if we all adapted in order to survive, then we can also learn to adapt again, but this time toward healing, toward connection, toward something freer. Would you like me to build this out with gentle imagery and pauses so it flows like spoken word for video? She always said she wanted closeness, a partner who would sit with her in the quiet and who would remember the little things. Her morning coffee with too much milk, the way she rubbed her temples when she was overwhelmed. But somehow, every time she found herself with men who kept their hearts tucked away. One boyfriend worked late every night, promising weekends that never came. Another loved adventure, but never once asked her how her day had gone. Most recently, she was with someone who never raised his voice, never criticized, but also never let her in. His words were polite, his presence steady, but there was a glass wall between them. She pressed her hand to it daily, waiting, hoping he'd press back. Friends noticed, why do you always end up with guys who can't show up for you? She laughed it off, saying she just had bad luck, but inside she felt the sting. Each time a partner turned away, she told herself she was too much, too needy, too sensitive. She never asked why she kept choosing this pattern, only why she couldn't be easier to love. The roots went back further than she realized. As a child, she would sit at the kitchen table with her homework, waiting for her mother to look up from the sink. Sometimes she waited an hour. Sometimes the sink won. When she scraped her knee, her father handed her a tissue, told her to be strong, and returned to the newspaper. No cruelty, no shouting, just absence. A quiet current of disconnection. Over time, she stopped asking. She learned to smile and say she was fine, because fine kept the peace. So when she met men who kept their distance, something in her recognized the landscape. The hunger was familiar, the ache felt like home. From this story, we can see three things. First, the way a caregiver responds or doesn't respond To a child's emotions, plants deep expectations about love. If comfort was scarce, comfort later feels foreign. Second, as children, we learn not only how to seek love, but also how much love we believe we deserve. When warmth was unreliable, we may unconsciously reach for partners who offer just enough to keep us hoping, but never enough to truly satisfy. Third, what looks like self-sabotage in adulthood is often loyalty to an old survival map. The child in us is still choosing what once felt normal, even if it hurts. And yet, patterns are not prisons. The same awareness that lets us see the glass wall is the beginning of learning how to walk around it. We've traced the echoes of early hurt. Next, we'll explore how the body holds those memories and how listening differently can open the first cracks toward change. Would you like me to write the next 5-minute section on the body's memory and the mind-body link in the same compassionate style? He was the kind of man people admired. Always early to the office, inbox cleared before anyone else had poured their coffee. His calendar was a wall of color-coded blocks, meetings, deadlines, workouts, dinners he never really tasted. On the outside, it looked like discipline. On the inside, it was exhaustion. At night, when the noise of the day finally thinned out, he would reach for whatever helped him not feel so much. Sometimes it was endless scrolling, thumb flicking through strangers' lives until 2 a.m. Sometimes it was a drink or 3 to soften the sharp edges he carried from desk to bed. Sometimes it was work itself, the glow of his laptop giving him a reason not to sit alone with the silence. Friends called him successful, his boss called him reliable, his parents said they were proud. But no one saw how quickly his chest tightened when the house got quiet, how his stomach knotted at the thought of being still. For him, stillness was dangerous, because in stillness, the memories came back. Moments he couldn't name but that lived in his body. The disappointment in his father's eyes, the way his mother shut down when he cried, a sense that love had to be earned by being useful. On the surface, it might look like addiction, too much alcohol, too much scrolling, too much doing. But if we pause with compassion, we see something else. A man trying desperately not to drown in feelings he never learned how to carry. That's why the question isn't why the addiction. The deeper question is, why the pain? What wound is he soothing? What loneliness is he silencing? And here's the truth. What he chose was intelligent in its own way. As a child, distraction may have been the only way to survive, the only way to keep moving forward when no one was there to help him hold the weight. The problem is that the same strategy that saved him then now keeps him trapped. So rather than judging the behavior, we can start by turning toward the hurt it's covering. When we see addiction, whether to substances, to work, or to a glowing screen, not as a weakness but as a cry for relief, we open the door to healing. 2 questions to sit with. What pain in me might this behavior be protecting me from feeling? And if I didn't have to numb, what longing would finally rise to the surface? Would you like me to carry this into the next section on implicit memory and the body's role in holding that pain? Imagine your body like a house with a smoke alarm. A smoke alarm doesn't need to see the fire itself. It only needs to catch a trace of smoke. Even if the stove is just sizzling a little too hot, the alarm blares as if the whole house is burning. That's how our nervous system works with memory. Implicit memory is the kind of memory we don't consciously recall. It's stored not in words or images, but in sensations, reactions, and instincts. You might not remember the moment as a child when you felt unseen or unsafe, but your body does. Just like the smoke alarm, your body's always scanning for signals that feel familiar. And if something today faintly resembles that old hurt, the alarm goes off, even when nothing dangerous is actually happening. This is why you might feel your chest tighten when a partner raises their voice, even if they aren't angry with you, or why your stomach knots at a harmless email from your boss. The body is not betraying you, it's protecting you based on an old survival map. Once upon a time, that reaction kept you safe. It meant stay small, stay alert, don't get hurt. Think of someone who freezes in conversation when a conflict starts. They know in their mind that this isn't life or death, but their body surges with heat or shuts down because the smoke alarm is saying this is dangerous, just like before. When we see it through that lens, the reaction makes sense. It's not weakness, it's history. And here's the hopeful part: smoke alarms can be reset. Our nervous systems can learn the difference between past and present. With awareness, compassion, and safe connection, the body can begin to trust again. So when we notice these stress reactions, the question shifts. Instead of what's wrong with me, we can ask, what is my body remembering? And how can I reassure it that I'm safe now? Would you like me to now write the final section with practical healing steps and a closing that ties all the threads together? The first step in loosening the grip of old patterns is simply noticing. You don't have to change everything overnight. Begin with an awareness journal. Each day jot down what happened, when it happened, and who was there. Maybe you noticed tension in your shoulders after a phone call. Maybe you went numb during an argument. Writing it down helps you see patterns that otherwise stay invisible. Awareness is the doorway to choice. When you notice a trigger, something that stirs a reaction bigger than the moment, try asking yourself a few compassionate questions. What am I feeling in my body right now? What does this remind me of? What might my younger self have needed in a moment like this? These questions don't judge. They invite curiosity instead of shame. Curiosity is what softens old defenses. Next, practice one somatic pause, a way of calming the body in the moment. For example, put both feet on the floor. Take a slow breath in. Feel the ground holding you. And look gently around the room. Notice 3 things you can see. This grounds the nervous system, reminding the body that right now, here you are safe. Boundaries are another small but powerful step. Choose one boundary to practice this week. It could be as simple as saying, I can't talk right now, but I'll call you later, instead of pushing yourself past exhaustion. Boundaries protect your energy and teach your nervous system that you can create safety for yourself. And finally, reach for one safe connection. That could be a trusted friend, a support group, or a therapist. Healing happens in relationship because the wounds we carry were formed in relationship. Every time you let yourself be seen without judgment, you rewrite the story that closeness is unsafe. Each of these practices matters because they give you back a little more choice, a little more freedom, and a little more kindness toward yourself. You're not fixing yourself, you're befriending yourself. And as always, if your pain feels overwhelming, or if these practices bring up more than you can hold, it's important to seek the support of a qualified professional. Sometimes the bravest step is letting someone else walk alongside you. Would you like me to also craft the closing statement that ties back to the opening paradox and delivers a hopeful send-off for the audience? Think back to the woman who kept reaching for distant partners and the man who numbed himself with work and screens. Their stories are different, but the roots are the same. Old wounds buried deep, shaping choices in ways they couldn't see. And yet, even roots that grow in darkness can crack open. Picture light pushing through the soil, finding its way up through the fractures. That light is awareness, the small practices you've begun, pausing to breathe, setting one boundary, choosing one safe connection. Change doesn't come all at once. It's slow, like roots loosening in hard ground. Safety comes first, and every tiny win counts. Each moment of noticing, each act of gentleness toward yourself is light breaking through. If you've carried the weight of old hurt into your relationships, into your coping, into the quiet moments you can't escape, you are not broken, you adapted. And the fact that you're here listening already means something in you longs for more than survival.